In 1976, a renowned cardiac surgeon named Dr. Michael Harrison made a discovery that would haunt him for decades. Harrison had performed over 2,000 heart surgeries, and his success rate was legendary with over 98.7% success rate. Colleagues called him the surgeon's surgeon. Medical journals featured his techniques, and students traveled across continents just to observe his work. But on this particular Tuesday morning, during what should have been a routine triple bypass, everything changed. 4 hours into the procedure, as Dr. Harrison prepared to close the patient's chest, he spotted something in the peripheral tissue, a tiny discoloration, barely visible, not life-threatening, and not part of the planned surgery. But he was curious. Any other surgeon would have made a note in the chart, scheduled a follow-up, closed up the patient, and addressed it later when the heart wasn't exposed and vulnerable. But Harrison had built his career on seeing what others missed, on going deeper when others stopped looking. So, instead of closing up, Dr. Harrison made a split-second decision that would change his life forever. He kept cutting, and his exploratory surgery lasted 6 hours longer than planned. The patient pulled through, but only just. What happened next revealed something terrifying about human psychology, something that explains why 90% of traders fail, why billionaires lose fortunes overnight, and why the smartest, most experienced people make the most catastrophic financial decisions when the stakes are highest. Because when asked why he hadn't stopped, Dr. Harrison's reply was chilling. "I was so intent on what I might discover, I lost sight of what I stood to lose." This phenomenon has a name in psychology: surgical momentum syndrome, which simply means the deeper you cut, the harder it becomes to stop cutting. Your brain convinces you that the next incision will justify all the previous ones. Can you relate? This is not just a story about risk management. It's a story of how our mind betrays us at the exact moment we need it the most, and why understanding this one psychological flaw is the difference between financial survival and financial suicide. This is not the end of the story, but let me take a quick detour. This video is sponsored by Margix. More on them later on in the video. What neuroscience reveals about risk and the human mind. In 2008, a hedge fund manager named David Chen watched his positions bleed for 3 straight days. His risk management rules screamed exit. His algorithms flashed warning signals. Even his partners begged him to cut losses. But Chen had the surgical momentum syndrome. Just one more day, he told himself. The market has to turn. And of course, we all know he wasn't trading anymore. He was operating on his own ego, convinced that the next trade would heal all the previous wounds. His initial investment of $50 million became $30 million, went down to $10 million, then zero. Chen was later quoted saying, "I wasn't managing risk. I was managing my fear of being wrong." Neuroscience has a startling truth about how our minds really deal with risk. When your trades or portfolio bleeds, your brain isn't calmly tallying numbers. It's sounding an alarm. The drop isn't just money. To your nervous system, it's danger. The same circuitry that springs into action when you're hanging off a cliff or standing too close to a speeding car is triggered when your account balance plunges 20%. But then, there is the evolutionary glitch. In nature, when you are being chased, the solution is simple: run faster or fight harder. But in trading, those same survival instincts tell you to fight harder by taking bigger risks. Your lizard brain doesn't understand that sometimes the predator is you. Dr. Andrew Lo, one of the most influential finance researchers of the past few decades at MIT, discovered something profound in his research on traders' psychology. He monitored the stress hormones of professional traders during volatile periods, and the data showed that as losses mounted, cortisol levels spiked so high that it literally impaired their ability to process risk rationally. The traders weren't making bad decisions despite their risk management training. They were making bad decisions because their biology was hijacking their rationality. But there's a second layer to this, and it is even more dangerous. Risk management isn't just about protecting your money. It's about protecting your identity. Every trader builds a mental narrative. I'm the person who spotted that breakout, or I'm the one who called the 2020 crash. But when reality threatens that narrative, your brain doesn't just resist the financial loss. It resists the psychological death of who you think you are. Back to the story of Dr. Harrison. 3 months after his medical license was suspended, he sat across from a psychiatrist and finally told the truth. While you're watching this, Bitcoin is smashing through major resistance and altcoins are going parabolic. We are looking at potential new all-time highs, the kind of momentum that creates life-changing wealth. This is what traders wait years for. The volatility is absolutely insane, which means massive opportunity for those positioned correctly. Smart money is loading up on longs while retail is still asking, is this real? But if you want to capitalize on this historic move, MarkX is throwing bonuses at new traders right now. $50 registration bonus. An additional $50 bonus for deposit of $100 and above. These bonuses cover 50% of your trading fees, meaning you keep more profits when crypto inevitably hits those next psychological levels. MarkX is handing out free money. The question is, are you going to take it? Join now using the link in the description and pinned comment. Move fast. Bull runs don't wait for anyone. Now let's get back to the video. Back to the story of Dr. Harrison. 3 months after his medical license was suspended, he sat across from a psychiatrist and finally told the truth. Not the sanitized version he had given the medical board, not the clinical explanation he offered his colleagues, but the raw and ugly truth that had been eating him alive since that operating table. I had built my entire identity around being the surgeon who could see things others missed, the guy who spotted the anomaly everyone else overlooked, the one who saved patients other doctors had written off. Admitting I was wrong that day, it wasn't just about the patient lying open on that table. It was about destroying everything I believed about myself. Every award on my wall, every article written about my miraculous insights, every time a colleague called me brilliant. I kept cutting because stopping would have meant accepting that I wasn't the surgeon I thought I was, that maybe I never had been. Harrison's confession reveals the most dangerous enemy you will ever face in the markets. Not volatility, not algorithms, and it is definitely not institutional money. Every loss you refuse to cut, every position you double down on, every time you ignore your risk management rules. You're not just protecting your account, you're protecting the story you tell yourself about who you are as a trader. To summarize, the most dangerous enemy you will ever face in the markets is your own identity. You are the reason you are failing and will continue to fail. But if you want changes, the next part of this video offers solutions. Threat and error management. The true framework of risk management. Again, we go back to the story of our good doctor, and here, the story takes an unexpected turn. 3 years after his medical license was suspended, after the lawsuits settled, and his reputation lay in ruins, Dr. Michael Harrison did something that shocked everyone who knew him, and possibly you watching this video. He walked into a flight training school in rural Montana and applied to become a flight instructor. His colleagues thought he had lost his mind. And anyone would. They asked him why aviation. Harrison had never shown interest in flying, never owned a plane, and barely traveled by air without white-knuckling the armrests. But Harrison wasn't running from his past. He was hunting for an answer, because while researching what had happened to him in that operating room, Harrison discovered something extraordinary. In aviation, they have a term called controlled flight into terrain. It's when perfectly capable pilots, flying perfectly functional aircraft, become so hypnotically focused on one instrument, one reading, one piece of data that they fly straight into a mountain. Pilots had faced the same psychological demon that destroyed him and traders alike, but unlike other professionals, pilots had figured out how to kill this demon. It was discovered that it is not engine failure that kills pilots, it is not storms, enemy fire, or mechanical breakdowns. It is their own minds. In fact, controlled flight into terrain kills more aviators than all other causes combined. So, the aviation industry did something revolutionary. Instead of just training pilots to fly planes, they started training pilots to fly themselves. They developed something called threat and error management, a psychological framework that treats the pilot's mind as the most dangerous component in the cockpit. Right now, every commercial pilot is trained to recognize 3 critical psychological states. State 1. Threat recognition. Before you even start the engines, before you even enter the cockpit, you identify what could go wrong, not with the aircraft, but with your mind. Am I tired, stressed, or overconfident? What psychological threats am I bringing into this flight? For traders, this means before you even open a position, identify what could go wrong with your psychology, not just your analysis. Are you revenge trading, feeling invincible after a winning streak, or are you desperate to recover from losses? State 2. Error management. When you catch yourself deviating from protocol, you don't ask, am I right or wrong about this flight path? You should ask, am I still thinking clearly? Is my judgment compromised? For traders, what this means is, when you catch yourself breaking your rules, you don't ask, am I right or wrong about this trade? You ask, am I still thinking rationally? Has emotion hijacked my decision-making? State 3. Recovery protocols. You have predetermined actions that completely bypass your emotional brain. This predetermined says when X happens, you do Y. No discussion, no negotiation, and absolutely no exceptions. For traders, you have predetermined stop losses, position sizes, and exit strategies that execute regardless of how you feel about the trade. Your rules shouldn't care about your emotions. Dr. Harrison spent 2 years learning these pilot protocols. Then he did something unprecedented. He went back to medicine and started training surgeons the same way pilots train for psychological threats. His students now learn to set psychological stop losses, decision points where they must step back, call for a second opinion, or end the procedure entirely, regardless of how they feel about what they might discover next. The most successful traders have discovered the same secret Harrison learned in that cockpit. True risk management isn't about predicting the market. It is about predicting yourself. They don't spend their time asking, what will the market do next? They ask, what will I do when the market makes me feel stupid, desperate, or invincible? How will I react when I am down 20%? How will I behave when I'm up 50%? Dr. Harrison learned something more valuable than any medical technique from that catastrophic 6-hour surgery. Something more precious than any surgical skill. The moment you stop questioning that voice in your head is the moment you become the biggest risk in the room. And from my experience, what many have failed to realize is that this is just noise. And this is what it sounds like in a trader's head. You've been right before when everyone else was wrong. You can feel the momentum shifting. Just hold a little longer, just add a little more. Every trader, past and present, has heard that voice. I heard it myself just days ago while trading, and that moment became one of the key reasons I decided to make this video. The traders who survive, and the ones who actually make it in this game, they don't avoid hearing it. What they just do differently is refuse to believe it. Because when that voice starts whispering its sweet poison, when your brain is screaming at you to abandon every principle you have ever sworn to follow, when your emotions are hijacking your risk management plan and demanding you bet everything on one more roll of the dice, that is your controlled flight into terrain moment. And it's either you have systems that save you from yourself, or you become another sad story, another brilliant mind that flew straight into the mountain because they trusted their feelings more than their instruments. The real question isn't if you will hear that voice, it's whether you will be ready when it comes. My hope is that this video has given you clearer insight into how your brain can hijack your decision-making, and that from now on, you will take greater responsibility for your trading decisions, and by consequence, your financial future. If you are not already in our Telegram channel, you are honestly leaving a lot on the table. That is where we drop powerful trading psychology tips that keep you sharp, focused, and ready to dominate every trading day. And if you are serious about going beyond the surface and want to understand more about trading and its noise, how it shapes your decisions, and learn how to break free from its grip, then you need to watch this recommended video. Watch it now and thank me later. Before you go, I've got a small favor to ask. Please hit the like button, share this video with a fellow trader, and subscribe so you never miss content like this in the future. Until next time, may the trend be with you.